Hello everybody, Ellie here for WhoCulture, and the Whomas celebrations continue. Still can't say that word without thinking about the dip. Anywho. Something very interesting is happening in the Whoniverse, something very exciting depending on where in the world you live. But before I get into that, there's something else that I want to talk about quickly, so let's start with this fun thing. Has anyone else seen that Sylvester McCoy has potentially teased that past Doctors might be returning? So Sylvester McCoy, the 7th Doctor, he was being interviewed for the 50% Doctor Who podcast, and naturally, discussions turned to Tales of the TARDIS. Now, if you don't know what Tales of the TARDIS is, if you can't remember, basically we got these little scenes, these little episodes in celebration for the 60th, whereby we had some new clips of the past Doctors, now looking aged, inside the memory TARDIS, which we actually saw in Empire of Death, and their companion, and they'd have a little reminisce in that TARDIS about a specific adventure or story, and that was then spliced with the actual serial in the middle. And then we had a little closing scene as well. Didn't explain that very well, but essentially we just got some new clips with the aged versions of the classic Doctors and their companions. That is what it was, and we did have one with Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Aldred as Ace. But this is what Sylvester McCoy said about Tales of the TARDIS and how it relates to Doctor Who in the future. This is what he said. Russell T Davies wanted to reintroduce the Doctors to everybody because they may be coming back, so that's why he did it. In the future, he may want to use them. And he then went on to say that it would be up to Russell as to whether he would be returning at any point. There's a few ways you can look at this. On the one hand, this could just be Sylvester McCoy speculating, hoping, wishful thinking for the future, and he actually knows nothing whatsoever. He's just hoping that Tales of the TARDIS means that in the future he might be able to return. On the other hand, maybe Russell T Davies did tell him that the Tales of the TARDIS was kind of going to be a sort of backdoor pilot, so that the past Doctors could return in the future. And then there's the third reading, which I think is probably the most likely, where it's not necessarily a foregone conclusion that we will be having the past Doctors returning in the future, but I think what Russell T Davies essentially said was, this is a way that we can reintroduce the classic Doctors to the modern viewers in their new aged form, setting the groundwork so that if we did want to bring them back in the future, we would be able to just bring them back without having to go through this big explanation of reintroduction. So Tales of the TARDIS was a good way for him to establish those Doctors, re-establish those Doctors in their aged-looking form, so that the groundwork is there if he so chooses to bring them back in the future. And don't forget that when the whole bi-generation situation happened, Russell T Davies did suggest that it's not just 14/15 that this happened with, that when this happened, the bi-generation essentially spread across the Doctor's entire timeline, and so now all of the Doctors could have, or did, bi-generate at some point. So essentially, we now have the possibility of these past Doctors returning in their older form, now that they have aged, and the bi-generation can explain that away. But the major thing that I want to talk to you about is something to do with the Whoniverse, as I teased, and it would seem that it might finally be going international, but not necessarily in the place that you might expect. It's actually happening over on YouTube. So a few days ago, a dormant BBC-owned YouTube channel called Doctor Who Classic was suddenly revived, brought back to life. But rather than clips or trailers or behind-the-scenes features, the kind of things you'd expect from a channel like this, what they've actually started uploading is full classic serials in omnibus form. So people can now watch these entire stories for free on YouTube. Now, it's not all classic stories yet. There are only a select few available at the moment. So here's the full list as of recording. So potentially a few more might have been added by the time you're actually watching this video. But as of right now, we have Spearhead from Space, The Sea Devils, The Time Warrior, Invasion of the Dinosaurs, Warrior's Gate, Warriors of the Deep, Vengeance on Varos, and The Happiness Patrol. Now, what's really interesting about this is that these are only visible in certain territories not including the UK. For once, the viewers outside of the UK are getting something exclusive to them-ish. Obviously, in the UK, we have all of those serials already available on BBC iPlayer. If you go onto that channel in the UK, you will be met with a blank channel. It will say there are no videos, no playlists, nothing at all. So this is something for those outside of the UK. Now, I say that with a little bit of an asterisk there, because the USA, for sure, definitely is one of the territories where this is available. At this point, I'm not entirely sure on what the others might be, or even if there are any others. We've had some comments from Australian viewers and French and Polish and Irish viewers that they haven't been able to get access to these things if they go on the channel. It also seems that there's nothing available in Canada or Germany either. That's all I can find using a VPN, so unless the VPN is blocked or whatever, but as far as I can tell at the moment, this is exclusive to the US, unless somebody tells me otherwise. And something else that's even more interesting than all this, I know, even more interesting, what? The main official Doctor Who channel, not this little side classic one, the official one, has uploaded the entirety of Genesis of the Daleks for free. But again, only in certain territories, like the USA. Now obviously this is very surprising, but a good surprise. We have commented so often in the whole year since the Whoniverse was announced how frustrating it is for viewers outside of the UK to not have the same access that we do. And while this is not full access, and I completely understand that, maybe this is kind of the BBC's maybe short-term plan for the Whoniverse growing internationally. There are still issues with rights and licenses and all those boring things. But maybe this is their plan to start introducing the Whoniverse to international viewers, to start kind of drip feeding things, that's fun to say, to start drip feeding things onto YouTube slowly but surely. And for all we know, this might not just be restricted to just some of these classic serials. Maybe Tales of the TARDIS, which I've just been talking about, maybe that might go on there. You know, we've got the colorizations. We have the colorization of the Daleks. We also have the colorization of the War Games coming soon as well. So potentially they might be added too. Now, I'm not saying they are going to be. This is not confirmation that that will be happening. This is just my speculation that this could potentially be the plan so that international viewers can have access to the same things that UK viewers do. And obviously, one of the reasons that Russell T Davies has given in the past about why Disney doesn't have things like the colorizations and Doctor Who Unleashed is because they don't pay for them. I guess fair enough, maybe a little bit petty, but when we're talking about that much money, kind of makes sense. But obviously in this instance, the BBC will be getting money from the ads on YouTube. So maybe this is kind of the workaround so that international viewers still get access to those things without having to sort that whole who paid who situation out. Now, the description for this YouTube channel does indicate that there is going to be a lot more coming to the channel. Perhaps the entire classic series is going to be there at some point. This is what the official description says. Travel in the TARDIS with full episodes dating back to the Doctor's first incarnation. See the Doctor meet the Daleks and Cybermen for the first time. Watch all their regenerations and relive friendships with companions like Sarah Jane Smith, Ace, and many more. Immediately, Daleks and Cybermen for the first time. Well, that instantly tells me that the Daleks and the 10th Planet will be coming at some point. That's fun. All of their regenerations, so that also suggests that every classic regeneration story will also be coming. Whether this means the modern ones are coming too, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, this channel is called Doctor Who Classic, but then that description does say all, so it's a little bit confusing. But at the moment, let's take what we're given. At the moment, it seems like it's going to be just the classic Doctors. But I think the real takeaway here, as I say, is that it's so lovely, finally, for the Whoniverse to be expanding beyond just the UK. I really do feel the frustration from the viewers who have been disappointed at the fact that these new things have been teased, we talk about them, and then you aren't able to view them. So I'm really glad that things seem to be changing slightly. Is there a lot more to come? Is there a lot more that needs to be done? Yes, obviously, and as I mentioned at the moment, it seems like it's only the US that have access to this. But again, if you are in a different country and you can see these things on that YouTube channel, then do let me know and we'll correct our information going forward. Now, obviously, the ultimate end game, the best case situation would be for all of Doctor Who, classic and modern and the new Who, modern, to all be in one place internationally, somewhere like Disney, like Netflix, but as I say, there's a lot of issues and things to consider before that's a possibility. For now, this is a very good step in the right direction, and I hope that those who now have access to this will enjoy watching those stories, potentially for the first time. I know that I've mentioned before that the classic series is something I've not seen masses of, and I definitely want to, moving forward into the next year, dip my toe into some more classic stories. And not necessarily an issue for me because they're on iPlayer, but if you wanted to have that journey in the next year as well, hopefully now this becomes a little bit more possible for you. So really, it really is a lovely Christmas gift, a festive, joyful present in the build up to Christmas. So let me know your thoughts on this in the comments down below. Like I said, if you're in a different territory and you do have access and I said you didn't, then please do correct me in the comments down below. In the meantime, I've been Ellie for WhoCulture, and in the words of Riversong herself, goodbye, sweeties.